Did you know that one of the most destructive things we could ever do for another person is to have pity on them? One of the most loving things we can do for another person, however, is to have empathy for them. Unfortunately, most of us are completely deluded when it comes to what actually true empowering empathy is. The reason for that is because most people what they call empathy is really just pity. And having pity for another person is one of the most unloving things we can do. It's one of the most destructive things that we can do. It says more about us than it really does the other person. Empathy is empowering and healing. Pity is destructive. Hi, my name is Jamal Javanji. I'm a life coach by profession. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Free to Love Coaching Solutions, LLC. I'm the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Living for a Living. And I'm also a podcaster. And I'm so happy that you decided to take a few minutes to watch this video, to join us here. I think you're going to find this video really insightful in the ways of understanding empathy versus pity, because if you're watching this video, it's because you care about people. I'm convinced folks who find my videos understand that they're here on purpose to help themselves and also other people, to make this world a better place. Empathy, when it's understood correctly, can be truly healing. But pity just really reinforces the victim narrative. And we don't want to do that. So in today's video, really, I just want to talk about 3 ways that we can utilize empathy in a way that's empowering for other people, okay? So the first way that we can understand empathy in a way that's going to really help people is we can empathize with a person's strength. We don't just have to empathize with their weaknesses or their struggle. Does that make sense? We can emphasize with a person's strength. So I'll give you a perfect example of this, right? So most people, right, when we have empathy for somebody, it's because somebody's struggling or going through a rough time, and then we feel sorry for them or we feel their pain. We end up feeling the pain that they're feeling. And that's actually what pity is. And people don't need your pity. Now, empathy, when it's understood correctly, do you have an understanding of a person's suffering and the roots of it? Yes, totally. And when you have that understanding, when you can understand where a person is coming from and why they're affected in the way they are, that's the first step of empathy. But the characteristic I want to tell you about today is that you don't just want to emphasize or empathize, I should say. We don't just want to empathize with somebody's struggle. You need to see, we all need to see the other person from a vantage point of strength and giftedness. Now, I'll give you a perfect example of how this played out in my life. Second year in high school, and to make a long story short, I was struggling. I was going nowhere fast. I was hanging out with a lot of folks who were using drugs. They had a lot of emotional issues. They were dropping out of school. I grew up in the state of Ohio at the time that I was in high school. I don't know if it's still this way, but if you had a parent's signature, you can drop out of school at 16. And a lot of my friends were dropping out of school. And I actually was being encouraged to follow that example. I was not doing well in school at all. One day, I'm walking down a hallway in my high school. There's hundreds of kids in the hallway. It was between classes. And a very big school. At least it was big to me. And I'm walking down the hallway. I hear my last name being called out. And somebody was saying, Javanji, Javanji, come here. And I look around and I look behind me, and it's a teacher in the middle of the hallway, kids everywhere. And I actually didn't know this teacher. I never had this teacher for any class. And I was actually really baffled how she even knew my name. But she was calling me by name. So I figured I was in trouble. Maybe I got caught doing something bad, which would not have been out of the question, based on what I was into at that point in my high school career. And she said, Javanji, come here. So I walked up to her, expecting to get in trouble, expecting something to happen. And she just looks at me for a moment, and she looked really deeply into my eyes. It was kind of strange. I didn't know her. I knew that she was a teacher, but I had no idea how she knew me. And she said, I bet you're wondering what this is about. And I said, yes. So what's going on? And she looked at me and she said, I have a question for you. And I said, okay, what's the question? And she said, and I've been thinking about this question for a long time. And I don't know if anybody can answer the question except for you. So I thought I would just ask you. And at this point, I'm really kind of intrigued and I have no idea what she's talking about. And I said, what's the question? And she said, okay, here's the question. What's to become of you? What's to become of your life? It was one of the strangest questions anybody had ever asked me, but it's the way she asked me. She was looking at me and I felt, probably for the first time in my life to that degree, I actually felt seen. First of all, I had no idea how she knew my name, so that was intriguing to me. It was a big school, lots of kids. It wasn't like it was a small school. I never had her for a class, so she took an interest in me. She saw me for who she saw something in me that made her pick me out of the crowd and call me up to her. And then she asked me a very important question. What's to become of me? And yes, she was concerned. And she had right to be concerned, right? But she saw something in me that I didn't even see at that point, and that was potential. And she spoke to that. And I kid you not, something woke up in my life that had been asleep my entire life. That was a pivotal turning point. I would not even be sitting here talking to you today. I would not have this company that I have. I would not be in the life coaching profession if that teacher hadn't saw me in that way, in that moment. She saw and resonated with my success and she called it out of me. I eventually did take her class the following year, and the rest is history. I got on a completely new track in life because of the way she saw me. And she had empathy for me. She could see that I was going down a very difficult path. She didn't lecture me. She didn't see me as a loser like so many folks did. And at that point in my life, I had family members, I had parents of friends that all saw me as a problem, I was a kid, I was a troubled child. They saw me as somebody who was troubled, and they didn't want their kids hanging out with me or playing with me. My dad would often, in this sense of concern, but he thought, I'm a screw up. I'm somebody who's going to amount to nothing. This was just a perception, and people had pity on me. I remember there was a lot of folks who pitied me and felt bad for me and felt bad for where I was headed in life because I was troubled at that point in my life. But she didn't see me that way, and I could feel it. It was a different energy. She saw me as somebody with potential, and it woke something up in me. So the question I just want to present to you is, how do you see people? Do you see their problems? Do you see their issues? Or do you see their gifts and their strengths? Because when you see their strengths, you can celebrate their strengths. And I've had other people come into my life, obviously, since then, since that moment in high school, and they celebrated me. My successes became their successes. You can literally have empathy for somebody's success. When something good happens to another person, you can connect with that and celebrate that. That is also a form of empathy. You don't just have to understand a person's struggle. You can understand their success and their gifts ahead of time. And you can see them from that place and call it out of them. Does that make sense? The reason most people cannot do that is because we have insecurity. And if you're insecure, if you struggle with insecurity, you're gonna have a hard time celebrating the success of other people. And so the second characteristic of what I would like to talk to you about today as a way to use empathy in a way that works for you is, if you see somebody who's succeeding or winning in life and you feel envy or jealousy, use that as an opportunity. You can use that as an opportunity to look into yourself and to celebrate their success, even though initially it may not feel like a celebration because you feel envy or jealousy. See, envy and jealousy are not bad things. When you feel envious or jealous of another person's success, there's something good about that. Now, I know that sounds crazy. I want you to hear me. What's beautiful about that is that means there's something inside of you that is alive. And the reason you feel envy or jealousy for another person is because that's something you want. So if you see somebody winning or succeeding in life, instead of feeling envy or jealousy, you can learn to empathize. It is a form of empathy. You can empathize with that part of you that is yet to be unlocked. It means there's something that they're experiencing that you also want to experience. And you can turn empathy on you and look at yourself and say, wow, I'd like to experience what they're experiencing. I'd like to win the way they're winning. I'd like to have that kind of relationship or that kind of financial abundance or that kind of success, whatever it may be. There's something in me that really would like that too. And the jealousy and envy I'm feeling is just indicator that I need to step into that in myself. I empathize with that part of me that really wants that. That means it's inside of me, just needs to be unlocked. That's when empathy can start working for you. You can have empathy for yourself. There's a part of you that wants that success too for yourself. And I always tell people this. As a life coach, I tell people this all the time. Everything that you can experience in life can be unlocked. You can experience if you will learn how to step into your desire. It's people who are not able to step into and embody their desire are the people who stay stuck and don't experience what they want. So what we do in the coaching world, right? A lot of the work that I do as a life coach is to help people sustainably step into their core desires so that they can learn to embody those desires, so they can learn to create those in their life. And if you see somebody that you envy or feel jealous of because they're succeeding or winning in some way, it's just evidence that you need to turn that empathy inwards, right? It may look like jealousy and envy out here, but really it's an opportunity for empathy for yourself. That gift inside of you is needing to be unlocked, and you can step into it. It is empathy. You're empathizing with the potential success of yourself. Does that make sense? That's the second characteristic I want to tell you about. And the third one, right? The third characteristic that I want to tell you about of empathy is you can see the struggles of other people as a form of their own personal power. Let me repeat that. Let me say that again. When you see another person struggling, you can see their struggle as evidence of their power, not evidence of their weakness. Right? Pity just sees the struggle of another person as evidence for their own inherent weakness or that person's weakness. When you have pity for another person, you see their struggle as evidence of how weak they are, of how inadequate they are, or how incompetent they may be. But you don't have to see a person struggle that way. You can actually see their struggle as evidence of their power. Now, I know that might sound a little confusing or strange, but let me give you an example of this. Just the other day, I was in a public restaurant with my wife, and a homeless person comes in, and it was very clear that this homeless person was struggling. And they began to ask for help and was trying to get the restaurant to give them a meal. She only had a few dollars, and she needed help, and she was hungry. She was very hungry. And I was just observing this situation. And she went in to a story about how nobody helps her. She's all on her own. She needs help. Everybody's walked out and abandoned her. And so her meal got taken care of. It was fine. But she began to really talk. So it worked out well for her. She ended up getting the food that she needed. But I was listening to her speech, right? I was listening to her language. And she kept saying, nobody loves me. Everybody walks out on me. Everyone's mean to me. I don't know why people treat me the way they do. And she was telling me that, and just kind of unloading this really sad story about how hurt she's been by people and how people have abandoned her, you know. And I've learned, obviously, from doing my own inner work and obviously working with many, many people over the years, and I've realized that it's not what happens to us that really affects us in life. It's the story we tell about it. It's the story. It's the mental narrative. As I'm witnessing this woman who's living out this picture of powerlessness and struggle. I'm listening to her story, and it just reinforced to me the power of the human mind to create struggle and to perpetuate it constantly. And that's what this lady was doing. She was telling a story, and she didn't realize the power of her words, the power of her focus, the power of her story. And I was literally witnessing a lady who had created for her, who was creating in real time struggle for her life. And instead of actually seeing the gift that was provided to her in that moment as evidence that her story is incorrect, that people actually do see her and care for her and take care of her, like she could start telling a very different story because she had this great meal provided for her. But she almost couldn't see it because of the power of the story of how abandoned and alone she was. And again, no judgment on her. I understand everybody has a history and things that they're working through. But I chose to see her as a powerful woman with a powerful mind in that moment. And actually, that's the truth. And when we look at and see people from that place, we don't reinforce the lies. And it can be very healing. And as a matter of fact, I took that away from me. It was a reminder to me of how powerful my thoughts are. It was a reminder to me about how powerful the stories I tell are. It's very, very important. The mental narrative. So we can actually see people's weakness and struggle. And if you understand what the roots of that weakness and struggle are, you'll realize that they are actually perpetuating it. Now, we don't have to pass judgment on those folks, but we can see them as powerful. People need to be seen as powerful, not weak, because nobody is weak. We are extremely powerful people, and we can use empathy. We can empathize with a person's strength. We can empathize with their struggle as evidence of how powerful they are. If this video has been helpful for you, let me encourage you to. I know people say this all the time. You hear me say this all the time. It's really an important thing to do. If you're watching this video and resonate, please right now just hit that like button. It's totally free. It helps this video get out to more people. And I want to hear in the comment section, if this, what specific takeaway are you walking away from this video with? How did this speak to you in regards to empathy and maybe the contrast with pity? And was this eye-opening to you in any way? I'd love to hear, and I'd love to hear your own stories with pity and with empathy. How has empathy, true empathy, impacted you? Leave a comment in the comment section about how this, about what your takeaway from this video is. Also, if you are interested in my work as a life coach, in the show notes right below this video, there's going to be a link to my webpage where you can find out more information about my 90-day coaching program. Click that link, you'll find out more information about it. And if you'd like to schedule a call to have a conversation about whether or not this program could be a fit for you, you'll be able to schedule a call at that link there as well. Okay?
I just wasn't sleeping anymore. I felt like I was stuck. I could not stay motivated, and it was hard to focus. I tried self-help books, therapy. I even took a vacation, and nothing helped. And then I found a personal coaching system that gave me back my life. Hi, Jamal.
What she discovered is the energy acquisition system developed by Jamal Javanji, a globally recognized coach featured on Fox Network, Newsmax TV, and an Amazon best-selling author with over 100 podcast episodes, guiding listeners and transforming men and women worldwide.
My 90-day coaching system is for anyone looking for a renewed sense of vitality and well-being.
I haven't felt this alive in years. Jamal changed that.
Don't just wait for a change. Do something about it. Book your session with Jamal today.
Your breakthrough begins the moment you say, yes, I'm ready for change. Hit the button below and let's get started.